We're going to talk about why knowledge is not power and the number one thing you can do to improve your execution coming up. What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today we're going to talk about knowledge. But not knowledge as you'd think we're going to talk about. It's a little more in depth. And what I mean by that is simple. Knowledge for a long time was my goal whenever I would start learning something like game development or like programming or like whatever. I always wanted to acquire knowledge. And I got addicted to this acquisition of knowledge for a really long time. And it was really weird because of the effect it had on me was almost like an addiction in a sense. And when you start gathering knowledge, especially if you're afraid to execute, it can consume you, and you can just read article after book after resource, and before you know it, you haven't gotten anywhere. You've got knowledge, but you haven't done anything with it. Now, growing up, I always heard the term knowledge is power, and I used to really bank on that when I would learn these things, when I would gather this knowledge, when I would read these books. At one point, I was reading 5 books a week. I would read ridiculously, trying to gather all the knowledge I could, because I thought the more knowledge I gathered, the more power I had. Well, after running several businesses, after failing at several businesses, after working with hundreds of people around the globe, and after seriously being almost homeless and broke and having to choose between feeding me and my dog and making a ton of money, more money than I even know what to do with, having the juxtaposition of those two things, they taught me something. And they taught me that knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. It's the execution that is actually the power, right? And a lot of times people get so stuck on the knowledge. They get addicted to it. They're researching, and they never actually start along the path that they need to start because they feel like knowledge is enough. Now, for me personally, I know just the idea of the knowledge was enough to keep me going a lot longer than I thought it was. And acquiring this knowledge, grabbing these little pieces of tidbits out of out of Google, out of books, out of documentaries, whatever it was, it tricked my brain into thinking I was getting somewhere. I thought, hey, I learned something, so that means I'm closer to my goal. And what I realized is that the majority of tactical stuff you learn is not in books. It's not in school. It's not in college. It's not in any of those places. And the place where you really find that knowledge, where you really get the valuable stuff, where you really learn lessons, not just acquire knowledge, was from experience, from actually going out and doing things. And a lot of times I see this, like when I posted the video about college, one of the big lessons there was I always thought there was some kind of hidden knowledge that all these famous game developers had. And I went to school even though I didn't want to, because I wanted to get this knowledge from them. I wanted to get this epic knowledge that no one else knew from these people that are experts. And I realized that the only really way to acquire the knowledge needed on that level, to get the expert knowledge, to get the insider secrets, to get the stuff that can 10x your business or it can change your life, it comes from experience. It comes from learning stuff as you do it. And a lot of times the lessons that you learn the most are the ones where you jump in just a little too early, where you weren't quite prepared for it. And I think in this day and age, a lot of us trick ourselves into thinking that knowledge is progress, that knowledge is power. And the problem is we live in an information age. We live with instant access to all of the knowledge known to man. Inputting all this knowledge in your brain over and over and over again for days, weeks, months before you start on something doesn't get you anywhere. It may seem like you're making progress. It may seem like you're learning stuff and you're acquiring all this stuff, but really the way to move forward, the way to get your shit out there and like make shit happen in the world is to just do it. You learn more from just doing it than acquiring knowledge will ever teach you. And that really struck me when I realized that, because again, like I used to hear, knowledge is power, knowledge is power, knowledge is power. But it's not power, it's potential power. It still requires that catalyst, that action, that movement on your part. It requires you to move forth and do things in the world that you can't just sit around and like know stuff and then expect to get somewhere. So that's all I really wanted to share today. I know a lot of people, they get stuck on the knowledge part of their path of learning, and then they learn so much that they get overwhelmed and they don't know where to start, and it spirals out of control. And that always drove me crazy, because I know that's happened to me many times, and there's been so many times where I was scared to start, so I just spent all my time gathering knowledge, and I tricked myself into thinking that like this was somehow helping me, so I'm just going to keep reading books, I'm going to keep reading articles. I'm not going to start yet because, I'm not quite ready, but I just want to keep reading, keep reading. My advice is just jump right in, man. Like, I learn more jumping right in everything that I've done, from business to marketing to game development to programming to everything. Like, you learn more by just jumping in. And while I love knowledge, I'm a big, huge fan of knowledge, it's not power. It's potential power. And that's what I wanted to leave you with today. So, once again, my name is Tim Ruswick. I'll see you guys in the next video.